Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to check out some brand new music today. This one comes at us from Dear Mother, which is a band that I have greatly enjoyed in the past. We actually discovered them through the Creator Request program, I think, where smaller bands contact me and ask me to check out their music. And I fell in love with the first track and ended up getting their album, and I listened to that thing a ton. They've started releasing some brand new music, and I've been excited to get into it. So, we're going to listen to one today called Threads. And yeah, to say that I'm stoked for this might be a bit of an understatement. Let's just get into it, see what Dear Mother's bringing to the table today. Build up of nice energy. Gotta turn this up a little. I'm digging the ornamental stuff on the outside. The synth stuff that's going on. The synth is removed for the guitar to take the spotlight. More driving guitar sound plus this one note in the guitar hanging out. Focusing on silence now. Recontextualizing that one guitar tone, brand new section for it. Coming in with the delayed attack on that. A much shorter verse this time around before we get back to the chorus. Nice little groovy syncopation on that guitar. Going for a big ending here. Yeah, lots of really great ideas on this track. I mean, it's still more Dear Mother, which is good in from my perspective, and follows up with sort of the trajectory I tend to see bands go into, where your second album tends to be a more refined, focused version of what you're doing on your first, and it's usually a third album where a band tends to experiment a bit more. So this track, and it's only one track too. I don't know what the rest of the album sounds like, but at least this track follows in the new metal footsteps that they had already laid down from their first album. Sick grooves, great texture, a nice balance between heavier and softer moments. And that was actually one thing I really liked about this too, was we have our, I don't know if I should call it an extended verse or the second verse was a shortened verse. Um, but it felt like two verses back to back the first time through. And what this allowed us to do was to feel the way that the verse works from the guitar and drum perspective, where there's space and they go dun 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 and then some silence, digga digga don't, right? And in that silence, though, we have this like synth stuff going along. It's just a lot of movement going in the background, and so we have this explosion of energy, and then this fast moving little twinkling stuff that's on the outside, and then back to the heavy energy. But in the second half of this, the guitars take the lead on it. That synth part is removed pretty much entirely, except for no, it's moved entirely because it's replaced with something else. And the guitars keep going. There's no space between that rhythm. It just continues to fill the space. And then we have this eerie guitar that feels like it's being bent. The tone is being bent, and it just sort of and it slides into and out of these notes. It's very shrill, and it's like this screaming on the outside of the track. But after this, we return back down to the spacious section where that fast moving thing is happening between the rhythmic explosions. This doesn't happen the second time around. We get the spacious one, the full guitar sound, and then we're into the chorus instead of doing it twice over. But we do get this, as I mentioned, a nice diversity between a smaller section and a larger one. Um, the chorus has a nice hook to it, and something I love is a bouncing back and forth between a harsh vocal and a clean. I think that's something Dear Mother does rather consistently and does very well. It's something I look forward to in their music. Um, and then we do it all over again. We get the verse, we get the chorus, and then that brings us to the breakdown, which is interesting. It makes me want to listen to the album again. It's been a while, especially since last year. I primarily listened to new music. So it's been probably about a year since I've listened to their first album called Bulletproof. I don't remember the bridges being as, I don't necessarily want to say static as this, but the bridge certainly felt like an extension of what we were already listening to. And this isn't a bad thing, it's just an observation here. But the feeling of the verse and the chorus isn't too different. They have their own riffs, they have their own rhythms, they have their own melodies that sit on top of it, but there isn't a really large gap between what they feel like. And the bridge continues on with this in a way that the entirety of the song feels like one idea with variations on it, more so than moving between distinct sections, which is something that I think they did really well on their first album. Now, this isn't a bad way to craft a song. In fact, I've praised songs for doing this in the past as well, creating a single foundation and providing variations on such an idea. But for here, I think I just need to give it another listen, so maybe I can find some nuance in it and differentiate them a little bit better in my mind. But I do feel like the bridge wasn't different enough for my own taste. Like, that is a totally subjective take right there. That's an opinion. Um, but I would have liked something to create a little bit of contrast in what the song was doing. Maybe, I mean, it could have even been a guitar melody to go in there, or putting the synth in a more prominent position other than exterior texture, something like that. But it sort of just followed in the footsteps. We had our guitars doing these heavy, explosive, rhythmic ideas. They were a bit slower and more spacious. It gave us the breakdown feeling. Now that I say the word, I've never really been a fan of breakdowns. And maybe that's why this one kind of bounced off me a little bit. Um, but like I'm thinking of like the last album. I think they had a lot of breakdowns on that one too. So I don't know. It could also just be the headspace, right? I listened to that album a lot casually. I never really went in and dug into it and tried to break it down from a critical perspective. And I do know that my tastes in music critically are very different than my taste in music casually. So I guess we'll see how I feel about this when I just put it on and chill to it rather than try to dig into an analysis with the lights on and the camera on, all this jazz. It puts me in a very different mindset when I listen to music in this environment, in front of the camera and all that. But I did feel that the final chorus was supposed to feel bombastic, supposed to have a nice punch to it, and since the bridge didn't really bring the energy down at all, the explosion into the final chorus didn't really feel like that much of a punch because we were already at that level. However, I feel like whatever they did for the final, 8 bars of the song, really going for that big ending, did work. Even though the volume didn't change at all, the feeling of the song did. The energy increased, the intensity increased, the drummer was hitting the notes harder. It didn't produce a louder sound because of the mixing, but what it did do was create a different timbre to it. It sounded more explosive, it sounded more electric. And I think some of the instruments were also widened out a little bit, so the final moments of the song absolutely deliver, and that's the type of energy and explosion I would have liked to see in our final chorus. Um, but then, like, that opens up an interesting can of worms because that's going to bring in like volume dynamics into the equation, and maybe that wasn't what they wanted on this track at all. So, yeah, I think where I'm at right now, this is a solidly constructed song. I enjoyed my time with it, and I think I'm just being a bit too critical about it right now. Like I said, I'm curious how I feel when I give it a listen, just chilling on a couch later with my headphones on, because I'm definitely going to give it another listen. Let's check some lyrics. So, this is a revolution song about fighting back against a corrupt ruling class. It says hypocrisy is where it all began, a malignant nation, policies to bear a helping hand. We've got the stories to read, we've got the rivers to bleed. Dying breath of every innocent is a celebration. Harvesting your wish is my command, seeking annihilation. Yeah, I think it's very clear what's going on here in the opening stanzas. They're very on the nose about it, which is, I mean, yeah, it's a good thing. I think it's better than being too vague. What was another good part? Oh, yeah, this is the end of mankind, let by the truths that we've signed. This is a hunt for the throne. The chorus says, keeping my promise unbroken, die, rip me apart, and then pull me down. Lies and all the words stay unspoken. That's a call and response there. And he says, we're asleep yet awaken, and the lies will not hold us down. Since our lives have been taken, we're running away, but don't turn around. Yeah, it's about trying to make sure that everybody is everybody has what they need. And for anyone who's trying to push against that, we need to push against them. The end of the track says, we'll not back down. For every single minute that you breathe, we'll discover who is right and who's wrong, and when the time comes around, we'll fight. Yeah, it's about survival against the ruling class that doesn't care about you. And I think the energy and intensity of the song absolutely matches that. It is an aggressive track, it never loses that energy, and the song is about never letting that energy die down either in your fight back. So yeah, I think it all works really well. I'm curious where Threads comes from. It's an interesting title for this track. I don't really have any thoughts connecting that to the lyrical themes, but I'm sure they have a reason for it, and I'm curious what it is. Those are my thoughts. Dear Mother's Threads. Let me know what you thought of this track. If there was anything that stood out to you, anything you would like to correct me on, maybe you have your own perspective or opinion on things about this track, toss all that stuff down in the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree, which takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for this week. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with some theme thoughts. I'll be talking about some of y'all's favorite riffs, some patterns I saw, and I'll probably list some of my own favorite riffs. Tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC, we're going to have an album review. I check out a full album. Those videos usually go somewhere between 3 to 4 hours long. Fairly lengthy content, but I find them enjoyable to do, and quite a few of you find them enjoyable to watch, so I keep making them. It's good stuff. And then Sunday we'll have our live stream at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.